FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Whyalla, no call! Score!
Salamidi for Cole. Cole on the run. Shoots. 2-0.
Lazanovsky with the free kick. Launches a rocket! Trimboli, what vision! Bath blasts. Yes! Edge!
Vujovic.
Beautiful ball! Here's Bozanic. They haven't! They might have won it!
The Pioneers with George Donikian and George Kotzanis on FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Athos Sirianos, we've got a special guest in the studio. We basically should put to bed this element or this part of the evening's program because we need to start the Pioneers a little early. So with a little bit of what they call support from George Kotzanis, has he given you the appropriate... go on. Do what you need to do. Fire up the button.
I will. I'll cross to George right now. George.
Fantastic. George,
Good
are you
evening,
there?
boys.
You're not accustomed to coming in this early.
No, I'm on overtime, and I'm loving it.
And more importantly, you don't normally spend any time with goalkeepers. So are you feeling a little uncomfortable?
I know, I'm always comfortable spending time with goalkeepers. I love watching goalkeepers falling over and seeing the back of them. Yeah. You know that. But we've got a special guest, and I'm going to be very respectful tonight.
Very respectful.
Till 7:50. Yeah.
What clearly you remember when he grabbed your hand and shook it, that the rest of your body went as well.
I do remember the young Yakka Banovic. Welcome to the show, Yakka.
Yakka, good to have you with us. Fantastic.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Flown in from Whyalla.
He's come in, has he, from Whyalla?
All the way from Whyalla.
Now, did you drive or did you fly in?
No, I flew. No, it's a long drive. It'll be 14 hours drive. So.
There are a lot of South Australians, though, who love to drive.
Yeah.
He's not one of them.
We'll talk about Yakka in just a moment. Okay, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, more of the Pioneers. George Kotzanis, we're back in the studio, and we've got a special guest, and I'm delighted to say that you've exceeded every expectation. You normally bring in someone special, an occasional king. Yeah?
Had a few kings.
King Kenny.
Yeah, we've had some royalty.
Yep, you've had some royalty. But tonight, I think you've done something very special. You've put me at ease.
Made you happy.
I'm very happy. Yeah. Anytime I see a man who has got hands like that, and a grip, and more importantly, a resume that he's gathered, it's very, very special. We're thrilled to bits to have you in the studio. We're talking about the great Yakka Banovic. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
All the way from South Oz, the other end of the
world.
Not the world. It's that part of Eyre Peninsula where you basically sit there and you go, yeah, we like the air here, and we like the sky, and we like the seafood, and we like just about everything else too.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
spot on. The seafood, definitely.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
Now, importantly, not only did you star for a great number of clubs in Australia, but you're one of the few guests that decided that there were a great many opportunities overseas. You went to Toronto and did some wonderful things over there, and you ended up in England at a time when it was more fashionable to come from England to Australia.
Correct.
You went the other way. So Yakka, not only are you a trailblazer, but you had the number 23 before anybody else thought about it being a fashionable number.
Should have patented it.
Should have. Can you imagine? Michael Jordan would have lucked out. Shane Warne wouldn't have known where to go.
Then Burton as well.
How did you get the 23? Was it a special number?
When I went to Toronto, that's the number. That was my first professional form signing for a professional club. That was at that time. So you got given a number, and that was the number that I got given. And I remember coming back to Essendon, Croatia, and I wore that same shirt for about 6 games, and they said, hang on a minute, you're not playing for Toronto now, get it off, or put another badge on it, and I didn't want to ruin the shirt. So, and I don't know where that shirt's gone, to tell you honestly. I've given most of my stuff and trophies. I was never into that. I've given it to friends and stuff. I mean, the last trophy that I had, donated to Croatia's soccer club only recently. Josip Jurkovic, I must mention him, a very good friend of mine who sort of I think he's got more memorabilia about me than I have. And if it wasn't for him, you'd have none of this because, and he made sure that that was put in the club. The last, I think it was the Wills Cup that we won, and I had it. So yeah.
George Katsanis, I think what Yakka's telling us is he's not a hoarder.
No,
No,
unlike me.
My wife will be very comfortable because she's been dumping stuff of mine for years, and I keep looking at it every other week when she puts it out, and I go, darling, can you just leave that one?
Yeah.
But clearly, that's never bothered you. Huh?
Never, no.
You just win another one.
Not
Oh, tell me something. The BBC got a save of the year that you won, and was awarded to you by the great Gordon Banks. The save that you made off a deflection by Gary Lineker. Was what sort of award was that? Was that a medal?
It was a
ball?
crystal
Crystal
vase.
Now tell me you've still got that.
No, my son's got that. He's got that. He's got my cap. He's got everything else. Just for that, I've got to give some to daughters, but they haven't got nothing left now. So no, that was against Leicester. At Leicester, that save, and the pleasing thing about that, not that Gordon presented it to me, it's he picked it. So he actually
made it
picked
even
the
more
save.
special.
Yeah, of course, because he was my child. He was my number one.
It's a great badge of honour
Yeah,
there.
he was. He was a great many. He was the number one for a great many football fans,
Yeah.
and I had the rare pleasure to interview him and also Pelé at different times.
Yeah.
And interestingly, both of them answered one for the greatest save,
Yeah.
Gordon Banks of Pelé, and the goal that was denied the most brilliant save against Pelé was by Gordon Banks in Mexico during the World Cup. So they both said it at the same time, and I sat there and I went, I love it, I want it.
You were lucky to have the opportunity to interview Gordon.
Yes,
He was an
yes.
absolute. People might not, he's quite older now, but he was such a humble man.
Very much so.
gentleman at heart. Yet he was, for Stoke, and I watched those early games. Him and the cap, Peter Bonetti for Chelsea, Northern Ireland, Pat Jennings.
Pat Jennings, I'm a Spurs man, and the buckets that he had, you would have marvelled at those hands of his.
Well, I think they made that up a lot more than they were
So they
saying.
weren't as big as-
They weren't as big as
Well,
that.
I
but
never-
anyway,
I never ran into-
He ran with it. He ran with the story.
As you would.
I remember reading it somewhere.
As you
where
would.
he was saying.
We're
"No,
talking
no,
to
no."
Yakka Banovic, the superstar keeper and part of our Pioneers stellar cast. We're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, an opportunity to talk to the boys in Sydney who are stationed at Ultra Football. We'll be crossing them very shortly, and then back with more on the Pioneers. I'm wondering, Yakka Banovic, did you play in Monaco at all?
No.
Have you travelled and
Didn't make it there. I've travelled through Monaco, but not played.
Now, the seafood, we started and talked about the seafood in South Australia. Any seafood in Europe that appealed to you?
All seafood appeals to me. It doesn't matter where it is.
So wherever
I
he
love
sees
it.
the food, he's going to eat it. Is that how it works? Well, we thank the boys in Sydney. We're back with the program, Mr. Katsanis, and as usual, you know where we start.
I absolutely
at the very
do.
beginning.
Yep.
Leave the seafood alone.
I want to know, the listeners want to know, and the viewers, because we do.
Yeah, we do both.
We do both. We want to know your very first football memory.
Yeah, well, that would have been a junior side Thunder. It was a Greek side, which was only about 500 metres away from the house, Dad's house.
So you've already moved to Whyalla from Croatia at that stage?
Yes,
Yep.
yes. So
you come out when you're about 10-ish.
yeah.
Yep.
The primary school never had a soccer ball.
Soccer ball, let alone a soccer team.
So I played footy. I was quite good football. I represented the countryside in footy. My hand and eye coordination was very good. I was very athletic. I represented the state in
Strong
athletics.
hands.
Athletics, 1,500 metres, the javelin, discus, table tennis, cricket, you name it, I played.
They had a crack at everything.
At everything. But that's, Thunder was the first team I started. But I played centre forward to start off with. And a lot of the guys that, if if you have a mind that's spoken to, that would say that, yeah, I was quite handy. And
There's not a goalkeeper I've met who hasn't thought they'd be handy as a centre forward, just for the record. Just for the record. But I do believe you. I do believe you.
Don't let him get away with it.
No, I'm not. You've had people here who told you that. Don't worry about it. I saw Jamie Punt and everything, you know.
Do you know what makes the keepers extra special as scorers up front? We know what the keeper the other end hates, and we put it exactly where he doesn't want it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the other thing is, we also understand that you give them as little time as possible to get ready, because the keeper always remember this, Kitsanis. The keeper always wants you to take one more touch, because one more touch means I'm going to get 5 metres closer to you than you ever imagined.
Let's get back to Thunder.
Thank you. Right.
So you're playing your first junior club at Thunder.
Yeah, it was Thunder there, and
Yeah.
I think I only played 1 year there. First half I played centre forward. Our goalkeeper got injured, so
Stepped
the
in?
coach says, "Come on, I'll step
Well,
in.
you had
You're
the
the
hand-eye
skip-
coordination.
You're the skipper.
Yeah.
You go in."
Yeah.
And then he just saw something. That was Bill Bateman, my first coach, who later on I'll say that how we got the Derby connection.
Yeah.
But he says, no, he goes, I'll put you in for another game, and then another one. And he goes, you know what? You're just a natural. He goes, you're a good centre forward, but you're just a natural goalkeeper. And it stemmed from there. Then I went to Croatia Juniors. From there, moved on to Croatia
In
Juniors.
Whyalla?
In Whyalla,
Yeah.
still in Whyalla. And I only played season and a half as well, because then I was put up to the first team, senior team. I was playing senior team still in school at 15, and that was very rare in those days,
Yeah.
because they had, Whyalla was a mining town, so all the players that come from there were English and Scottish, very tough, very mature, and you just didn't see 17, 18-year-old
No, they ate them for
players.
breakfast.
Well, most mining towns had a football team.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
yeah.
Well, Croatia won. I think they were in the Guinness Book of Records for a while. They won 10 on the trot,
Okay.
the championships there. So, and the same thing again. Adelaide, Croatia toured. They played, and I think we drew them in one of the games to play in Adelaide, and they were impressed and straight away said, "Yep, we'll have him." So the first year I flew down every Saturday to play. I
Okay.
was still in Wales. I was still in school.
Yeah.
I couldn't leave. So,
So you're playing in the Old State League in Adelaide?
yeah. And it's the following year that I left, going to Teachers College for Fine Arts and Physical Education, and stayed with Croatia for a few years, yeah.
Okay. And then how did you find your way did you come to Melbourne before Toronto, or was it from
No, we played, there was a tournament, 76.
Croatian tournament?
Yeah, Croatian
Yep.
tournament in Melbourne.
Yep.
And that was a good tournament. They were a good side. Croatia then had Billy Wojciech, Cummings, and all
Yeah.
Gardner and all that.
That's
And
pretty
Sydney.
Good. That's a pretty good
Yeah.
save.
And Sydney had a top side as well, with Katia Bonnier for them and all that.
Ooh.
Now we Adelaide, we had a good side, but nothing in the quality that, or the name wise from them.
Yeah.
But we beat Croatia in the finals on penalties.
Melbourne, Croatia?
Melbourne,
Yeah.
Croatia.
Yeah.
I
Did you
saw-
save a
saved
penalty?
3.
3.
one of them was from Broncos, Trillina, so if he's listening.
He
Hey,
listens.
Branko. Hey.
Is
Yakka
anyone that
Banovic.
listens is Branko.
I think I did Branco. No, and we played Sydney in the final, and then we lost in just, I think it was an extra time as well, or a couple of minutes ago, Atia Bonnie scored a goal from, right in the corner, and they won 1-0. So this Croatia, Melbourne was straight away impressed with me. They wanted me then straight away. And I said, no, I'm going to go back. I've got to finish my degree, teaching degree. And I said, I'll see how I go anyway. In the meantime, Metros Toronto toured Australia. So they came to Adelaide, played the game, and they came to Whyalla as well, played the game. And I think I played you got one of the photos there.
Yep.
With that team. I think I played one of the games for them, and they were impressed. They said, look, you got to, you fancy coming over to America? When I said to my mum and dad, they just freaked. What?
How old were you at this stage?
Well, this would have been 19.
Yeah, okay.
Spent a couple of years, 19, 20.
Yeah, so still a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So America was a big step.
Of
then
course.
going. I mean, and on my own as well. I had no family, so. But I was never scared of that. I moved. I wanted
To advance yourself.
all the time. I just wanted to go to one better than the previous one. And as my career, as I will explain, you will see that in steps.
You grew as a
know.
keeper
Yeah.
in every experience.
Yeah. But I loved it. And I used to go to people saying, I said, you've got to be selfish. If you're not selfish, you can't be a good player. Because
Driven.
If anybody's selfish, if the whole team is like that, then it clicks. I mean, a goalkeeper, I don't want to go in goals, stand there for the team to win 10-0 and me not doing anything. What's the point of that? I want the other position to be hammering us. And
Well,
I
your
want
concentration is better.
Exactly.
When you're being called upon. And quite often, what people don't readily understand is when they see a goalkeeper having a good run,
Yeah.
it's normally when their team is going through an awful lot of defensive work,
Yeah.
and they're focused. And the challenge for the really big goalkeepers is to be called upon for only 1 minute,
Yeah.
and they have to be alert. And that's very, very hard. It takes I think a select
Well,
mind.
it is a concentration, and it's reading the game as well, because
Yes,
it's the easiest
constantly.
time that you can be put out of position and that, and you see that in big games now. I mean, have a look at Liverpool's goalkeeper. That I mean,
Carrius, yeah.
The first goal, that's all right. That happens. It's a mistake.
But not the
he
second
didn't.
one.
But the second one, he never moved. He stood there and he went just like this, and he hit it from 40 metres, and that's bad positioning, concentration, and obviously. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Well, there's the other element too. The balls are much lighter,
Yeah,
Yakka, from the
yeah.
time that you and I were playing. The balls
Well,
were much heavier.
Some of the old guys used to say that if you headed the ball, you still have stitches on
Correct,
for
correct.
a week.
The imprint remains. Yeah, but I
Yeah,
played without gloves. Did you play with gloves or gloves?
No, without gloves till I got to England. Yeah,
Was that because of the mud and all of that?
probably. And if you being bombarded for 2-3 hours every day, you
Bruised,
feel it.
yes.
As here, it was more amateurish.
Yep.
You didn't get as much
Part-time.
part-time.
Yeah.
But Melbourne probably would have ordered them in Melbourne here, but not in Adelaide. Not in Adelaide or Whyalla, because the climate was
No,
dry.
that's so. And you like the feel of the ball in your hands.
And same with America. So yeah.
So tell us about your time in Toronto and turning pro, as it was.
That really I enjoyed. It was too short. It was only a year. America at that time wanted to promote soccer, so they had every name in the book, every world-class player: Pelé, Beckenbauer, Georgie Best, Gordon Banks, Rodney Marsh. You just to name a few. Then you got all the Italian at the top.
Chinaglia? Giorgio?
Because I think he played for them against us here
He
as
did,
well.
yes.
He did.
Niskin's brothers, I mean, the list just goes on and on. They wanted to kick the soccer off, and they introduced the 35-metre penalty, right? So what happened is you were 35 metres out, the referee would blow the whistle, and you had 5 seconds to score the goal. And I loved that. I think that was, because a draw, Americans exciting with their football,
No,
with
they
their
always want a
gridiron,
result.
they want a result. They're not
Yeah.
going to sit there all bloody
Extra
day
innings.
and just no goals. What kind of game is this? So they introduced, if it's a 0-0 draw, we'll have a penalty
So,
shootout.
like the
35.
hockey, where you get a chance to come at the keeper, and the
Yeah.
keeper has a chance to come at you.
Exactly.
Against
exactly.
against
they
the
probably
clock,
got that.
Yeah,
from,
against the clock,
They
with the
probably
shot
got
clock.
that from
Wow.
the hockey, from the ice hockey.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Wow.
So, but that was good.
So did you stall?
Eh?
Did you stall them?
It's funny because this is where the concentration, as you were mentioning earlier on, comes in. You look at players.
Yeah,
You
you
see
learn.
how they strike the ball. You see how they do, and I've always had a good
Memory.
rate of penalty saves for that reason only.
Because you read them.
You never know fully, obviously, but I knew what to expect from the defenders. I knew what to expect from the forwards and midfielders, because midfielders are always the cheeky ones. They're not happy scoring a goal. They want to send you the wrong way and do that.
Yes.
But so if you guess, you've got an easy chance to saving them because
Yeah.
they haven't got the power in them. So
Well, there was a guy called Alf Ramsey, the great coach of England, and in the days when he was playing, he used to hit the ball like a bullet, straight above the keeper's head.
Yeah.
He always believed it was harder for the goalkeeper to lift their hands up to grab the ball above their head than dive. He thought that was harder, and he would hit the ball as hard as possible.
Yeah.
And he never failed.
Yeah. Well, you know, in my
Tremendous
time
nickname.
and you watching that, I played the game yourself. I don't know how many times I've saved the penalty. The refs pulled it back if you moved 1 split second.
Yeah.
Now they're halfway down the bloody field.
Exactly right.
Excuse the French.
Well,
but,
the
you
English,
know, I mean,
the English keeper spends half his day jumping 2 yards forward. I mean, come on. He and by the way, the Croatian goalkeeper does the same
well,
thing.
they all do. They all do because they're allowed to do that now.
Yeah, but there's
Yeah, the
only
referee's not-
4 or 5 officials, the 6 in the box, and the video.
And VAR.
Yeah.
What are they missing?
Your friend VAR.
Oh.
You're the fan of VAR.
Excuse me?
Yes.
It's the future. You want to fight it?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
okay,
do.
good luck.
I
You must
do.
like losing a lot.
No, you just said the
Yakka
keepers
never
move.
liked losing.
All right.
No.
Always liked winning.
We're back in Toronto. So a year in Toronto and then back home to Whyalla?
Well, what I was, the American League looked at really putting some money into that, and as we went through the same thing with our own house, so they wanted to cut the ethnic names out of
Oh,
it,
okay.
right? So,
So that's where it started.
well, not the Croatians.
No.
No, they're not gonna have any of that. So because they were supporting, there was a couple of million thrown in, and you know, so they said, look, we'll still have it red, white, and blue, but no Gurup, and you'll be called Toronto City. I said no. So yeah, they derailed them back to 4th division, and they had to start all from scratch from
So
then on.
that's
After winning at 76. Yeah, so
It
once
hasn't
they
hurt Croatia,
folded,
the fighting.
so-
It hasn't hurt them because
No.
they, as far as I'm concerned, they won the World Cup.
Yeah.
They didn't get the trophy,
No.
but they won every other accolade.
Yeah.
You must have been very proud.
Of course I was, and I said that to a lot of people. You know, earlier on, I thought when I went earlier on, I was at Whyalla, and it was Yugoslavia. Croatia didn't exist, and I always fought for that, and I'm proud of that achievement because I mean, even in England, a few times when they interviewed me, they'd say, "Oh, Yugoslavian, ex-Yugoslav Australian international." I'm going,
Say, no,
I'm
hang
not.
on.
Hey, I'm not.
Hey.
You know, this goes back to to Australia.
Yakka, when we started SBS, the day I walked into the newsroom, they said to me, your newsreader here, your reporter here is Vlado Lucic. I said, "Oh, Vlado, you must be Yugoslav." He said, "I'm Croatian." I went, right, okay.
Yeah.
Got it sorted real quick.
So the only way to stop that, I said, no more interviews until. So
You
then
get it down
They
pat.
still didn't put Croatian. They just put Australian international from then on.
yeah,
So
fair enough.
they sort of met me halfway, which was I was happy with that. But I just yeah.
No, that's fair enough. So once they were derailed, sent back, it was all over for you, or was just
no,
a
it
case
was,
of
it
they
wasn't
couldn't
over
afford
because
you?
then the case was I just rang Essendon and said, "All right, I'm ready now. You still
Still
want me?"
interested? Yeah, yeah. And they were?
Of course, yeah. They grabbed the chance because I think Adelaide, Croatia only asked for 5,000. I mean, it's still 5,000.
Big
that was
money in
like-
those
that
days.
was you know,
People don't forget.
and that's between mother
Yeah, of
clubs
course, yeah.
type of thing. So they did them a favour. So and that was it. I was back in Melbourne.
Back in Melbourne.
Yeah, they wouldn't have made it 5,000 if you had to play against them.
Possibly not.
Anyway, Yakka, you know what I'm talking about. They would have played a harder ball.
Yeah, but yeah, and you know, the stint with Essendon was.
Who were the
unbelievable.
players that you love having in front of you, and who are the ones that you loved to challenge? Because they would have loved to come straight at you. In those days, you could attack the goalkeeper,
Yeah, well.
which meant we had to play
What,
differently.
in Australia or
Yeah.
Yeah, in Australia, yeah.
in Australia. You know what? I never looked at it from which player I would. You know, I never specifically the forwards. I admired my own forwards, my team forwards, than I did the opposition. So, Yeah, that's a hard one for me to answer because I really
Your
can't get
mindset was
around it,
different.
because I was just looking at positioning and the ball and what that position can do to me as in damage. So
Were you a big
regardless
talker?
whether-
Were you a big talker?
Yeah.
He says as he smiles. So you would have played with Johnny Gardner at Croatia.
Oh, Johnny,
Georgina,
Johnny, Kenny Murphy, Kokoschka, Smart, Branko Chulina.
What was Branko like?
Branko is a lovely bloke. We've stayed friends throughout all this, and he was a top player as well. Branko was an excellent midfielder. He had Billy Wojtek as well, what a forward. But he was at the end of his career at that particular time.
What was Billy Wojtek like in training? You would have had some skirmishes, huh?
He was a cheeky sort.
He's still cheeky, isn't he?
He just wanted to push it, nutmeg you, and that's it. That he was happy, you know. When you put
Tell
him
me
in the
he
circle.
never nutmegged you. Just tell me he never nutmegged
Nobody
you.
ever nutmegged me.
Good. I'm very happy.
We'll get Billy on and we'll ask him that same
Yeah.
question, and
Oh,
it'll
you
be a
can.
different answer.
If
on
you've
it.
just joined us on the Pioneers, we've got Yakka Banovic in the studio, and Croatian born, proud Australian, played in Canada, and of course played in England. But we're going to get
We'll get there, we'll get there.
Still so many stories to come.
We got a caller. Before we get to the caller, you mentioned Butch Kokoschka. I really want to hear someone else's opinion. I rave about Butch,
Yeah.
and a lot of Sunshine City and Croatia supporters at the time rave about him. You played with him,
Yeah.
with
Well,
Victoria
that's-
as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with Victoria, and I mean Peter Lewis as well, right fullback. Steve Kokoschka, centre half. John Eisenhorn in front for Victoria, and you
Cool.
know how well we played against it. Steve Kokoschka was very underrated player. He
Not in
was,
my
he was
house, but
tough.
yeah.
He was as tough as nails, and I enjoyed playing in front of him. And we just had a natural. I understood him, and he understood me. That's very important for the defenders.
That's
you
rare.
know. So,
Rare.
yeah, I
We
hope
have
you do
someone
get
has
him.
called in. Very keen to try and grab George Christopoulos to come to Sydney to be the captain of Sydney Olympic. It didn't happen for a number of reasons, but terrific talent. And one of the youngest Socceroos of his day to play.
I think second youngest of all
yeah,
time.
Yeah, 17-year-old playing
And
against Greece at Olympic Park.
He and Butch Kokoschka made their Socceroo debut on the same day against Greece at Olympic
There you
Park.
go.
Not that I remember or anything, but
No,
I was there,
there you
and Australia lost 2-1.
Yeah, well, things happen.
Happened. All right. So, Croatia, how many years was it there?
I'm not quite sure. I think I was only there for 2 years. So, you know, I was there for the first year. Remember, Joe Sigurd was the president,
Yep.
and Frank Buren was the secretary. And that first year we won everything. I think Gamble Cup, the
Yes.
treble, and that.
Yeah.
Now the following year, I was playing with them, and I spoke to Frank, and I said, "Look, I'm keen. You know, I want to advance. I don't want to. Is Croatia thinking you're going Philip Sleet? Yeah. Of course. He had to say that. I realise that now
Yeah.
to keep me there, but he knew that I wasn't because I wanted to further. I wanted
Yeah.
to play the highest level in Australia, and Heidelberg were in that league, and I don't know who was actually at Heidelberg, John Margaritis or McKendry, when they bought me.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Was it 79? Might have been.
Well, that
Might have
yeah.
been Margaritas.
Because I think it might have been John, because swapped. Heidelberg, Croatia got excellent value for the money. They got 20,000 plus Peter Blasby plus a game. I think the charity game.
Charity game. And in Blaz's case, he became the keeper of the century at
Yeah.
Melbourne Knights. So
Yeah.
they did well, and he did well out of
Oh
that.
yeah, of course, excellent. Yeah.
All right, and that put you into the window for the national team, obviously moving up to the national there.
Well, so I played with Heidelberg for a year. You know, got the state side with Len McKendry.
Yep.
And that we had a great start. So
It was that golden era for the stateside
it
with
was.
touring teams and
Yeah,
whatever.
It was because I think there were 6 of us from Heidelberg in that stateside, and I think we had better results than actually Australia on
With
some
visiting teams, of course,
on some of the games. But then I got itchy feet again. I coming back to Bill Bateman, my original coach, the first one.
Yeah.
He had a brother at Derby.
That's always handy,
And
isn't
I
it?
was talking to him over the phone. I said, I feel like, during the off season here, which is obviously the busiest in England during Christmas and that, I said, I always had that. I said, I want to try, because I always rated English league for goalkeepers as the best.
The toughest test.
Toughest, because you had 40 odd teams in there. And
The conditions, the whole, yeah.
And it was just attacking. There was no relentless keeping 1-0 scores and so on.
They came at you.
So I said, well, if I can, make it there, then I'll. So that's what happened. He set me up with a trial. I went there. Nobody knew the first one that I went. And my first game for the reserves there, I trained there for 2 weeks, and they were very impressed. So they go, we'll give them a game against Man City at home to at City, sorry, and our reserves. And I think the City had a couple internationals. There was Denia, I remember Denia definitely, Polish international, and there was a couple of others anyway. But I had a great game there. It's so great that Colin Addison, who was the manager then, goes, yeah, we'll
sign the form.
Sign the form. I got back to Australia, and I mentioned that to the Heidelberg people, and I think they laughed. To me blatantly, I think, yeah, right, yeah. So I said, well, okay. I got back in touch with Derby, and I said, look, I don't really believe that you guys are interested until you actually put in an offer.
So you had to send a telegram?
And that's exactly what happened. Colin Addison, I think the secretary of Derby rang them and said they're keen, and then once they found that out, next step is I've got half of the committee coming with me to England. There was Jim Langopoulos, there was about 3 of them there.
Any excuse, eh?
So, yeah, but the signing, the actual thing, that's a story in itself.
Well, hold on to that, because we're going to have a break, and we'll continue that story just after the break. We'll be back on the Pioneers in just a sec.
Our favourite day of the week when we have the Pioneers. George Katsanis, terrific to have Yakka Banovic in the studio, reminiscing and talking about the days when he was a pioneer for the game. Not only an Australian pioneer, a Croatian pioneer.
Yes, the Australian-Croatian pioneer. Very special to have him here, absolutely.
And a goalkeeper to boot.
All right.
We're going to take an opportunity. The boys at Ultra Football, if you're in the vicinity, get on down. They're in Alexandria. Look up the address. They really have set themselves up. Yakka, they've got probably more gloves, more goalkeeping jumpers, more goalkeeping equipment than you've ever seen in your life. Yeah, all at Ultra Football. So if you ever get to Sydney, look up the boys. It's a fantastic setup.
And tell them George Donikian sent you.
Yeah, absolutely. Or George Katsanis. They speak well of both of us.
Not a problem.
But let's get back to the program.
Absolutely. Now, talk us through that signing you were talking about with Derby, and you had the Heidelberg committee overseeing it, making sure that obviously the transaction went
through. Yeah, because I think we got there at 10 o'clock at the club rooms to sign, and so that was fine. I was in the one room, the Derby officials with the Heidelberg officials with the other, and they were knocking the deal and seeing what they're going to come up with. And for me, it was, I was on my own. Like I said, there was not like the players have now, managers, and I had no family there. I had no idea what they were paid, what I was worth. I just knew I wanted to play English football, top level, and that was it. But as it got, I sort of, when I was on my own there, I'm sort of thinking, but you know what? They've asked me to come here, so I must be worth something to them. Anyway, the Derby officials come in and they say, yeah, we've come to an agreement on the price. And I said, what's that? Oh, we can't tell you that.
Oh, very good.
I said, well...
Taxman must have been close by.
What am I going to get out of it then? They go, oh, well, this is between the clubs. You sort your own thing with the
manager.
Derby County, with the manager. So the next, I said, okay, fine. So Colin Addison comes in with Michael, forget the secretary, and they were saying, well, okay, we've agreed with the Heidelberg. Now
The
we've
fee.
got a fee.
Yeah.
And I
Now personal terms.
I straight away asked him, what was that? And he was like,
I can't tell you.
none of your business, in that sort of, not a nice way type thing. So I said, fair enough. So they offered me a 2-year contract. And the contracts are there. There's a base wage, then on top of appearance, if you appear, appearance money, then if you're in the top 4, you get an extra £100.
Yeah.
If you're in the top 2, blah blah blah, and all down there.
A lot of
Plus all-
incentive based.
all
Yeah.
plus. So if
Yeah.
you're a successful club, you earn twice as much as you would on your basic
Yeah.
wage. But what they were offering me was, 5 times more than I was earning here. So it was quite a good deal. But I still wanted to know what Heidelberg were getting out of it. So eventually I got it out that they said, look, it's 40,000 up front, 40,000 once I play 25 games, and another 40,000
So there was
in
even an
installments.
incentive for the
Yeah.
club. Eh?
So I said, okay, fine. So when I went back to Heidelberg and said to Jim, well, that's all right, you're getting 120,000, you only paid, with that. So I said, I've set the deal up for you, so I want 15,000 to my account. And they go, what? I said, well, they go, no, that's got nothing to do with you. That's, yeah, I said, yeah, it's got plenty to do with me. I mean, unless I want that. They go, okay, all right, after a while, okay, we'll do that. I said, no. I want it now on the transfer. I want that money in my, before I sign the contract, I want that money in my bank account. And I'll get a confirmation, because then my girlfriend, my ex-wife, and I said, I'll ring her to tell me, she'll ring me as soon as that money's in.
Yeah.
Validation.
Who was the little guy who was the banker?
Was it Lewis?
Lewis,
Lewis, yeah,
that's
there it
right,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, you've got means of doing that, you signed the contract. So, and then that was stalling, and then Colin Addison comes in and says, what the hell's going on here? What are you dictating terms here? So we sort of got on a
bad
rough knot
start.
straight
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
But I said, look, all I'm trying to do is look after myself. I haven't got a manager here. I don't know what the wages are. I've agreed on it, but I might be underpaid, whatever. So you got to give me a bit of leeway here. He goes, fine, just sort this shit out. I want to get out of here. So, yep, they signed it, and I was signed the contract, and he was like, the ink didn't even dry, and he goes to me straight away. He goes, now, because you call him Colin, and they goes, now it's boss or gaffer from now on.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, what's a gaffer?
The boy from Whyalla that doesn't know what it is.
It's not Croatian for anything we know.
Well, yeah, so that was, that was quite traumatic, that particular day.
All right, so what are your memories of, you've got through this part, of now you're in a big enough club, you're training full time instead of part time, so the transition, how did you feel, what were you going through, as well as being away from home?
Well, you got to realise that I've given up everything in Australia. I've just gone into the national team, just played against Northern Ireland, that for a hope there. So I went on a limb there, really.
With no support.
So with no support. I mean, so, and the fact is that I come in late because of the work permit from the first time. So I would have started off first, but I had to buy another goalkeeper, Roger Jones from Stoke, who played 300 odd games for Stoke. So he was and they paid 30,000.
No lightweight.
Yeah, so they paid 30,000 for him as a get. But the training was fantastic. It was absolutely brilliant. I mean, but the first, they progress you. So they've got an 18, what they call an 18 with the apprentices and that. They've got the reserve team and then the first team. So when you play for the 18, you're playing with all 15, 16-year-old kids, and you're playing in front of 50 people. And this went on for a couple of months, and I'm going, what's going on here?
That's not what I signed up for.
So I approached Colin, and he goes, it's none of your business, just train, and that's it. You don't tell us what to do. So I had to progress, fight, then get into the reserves, and then from the reserves we'll work my way out, because we went through 10, 12 games without a loss. And now this is the interesting thing, and a lot of the English lads that are listening in the Scottish will know this. Your team and the reserve team, they are independent of the league.
Of course, yes. It's
your
different leagues. Yeah.
So your reserve can be in the first division. They're playing all the first division leagues, and your first team is in the second division, which was the case.
So you'd be playing the local sides, but they could be Nottingham Forest or
yes,
whoever.
Well, so what I'm saying is that our reserve team was playing better sides than our first team.
Yes.
You know, because you had all the big names
Yeah.
coming. I mean, the one game that I had at Liverpool, that's when all the inquiries started coming, and that's when they realised that
You could play
they
it, yeah.
had that
Yeah.
could play, and they held me back once again. I didn't know what was happening behind the scenes because Bob Paisley was inquiring about that. Even Brian Clough from Nottingham Forest, who lived in Derby, and so yeah, it was. So people ask me whether you got any regrets. No, I haven't got any regrets because I did everything what I wanted to in life, achieved everything. Mistakes, yes.
Yep, we
I
all
do a
make
couple of things in that, but regrets, not really. Maybe the only regret I would say would be not having my kids see me play. You know, they grew up without having that. So if I could change that, I would. But
I'm sure there would be a way to grab some footage of the days, because it would have been recorded.
Oh yes, they've seen. I've got videos from
Yeah, but
from
you
the games.
you
in
actually
England
seen
now.
them.
But what I'm saying,
see them play live.
Yeah,
that's
so,
different.
You know,
That's hard.
so that's because my son always rings me and says, "Dad, do you know this guy? Do you know this guy?" And daughter the same, because they're working there, and I go, "Yeah, I do." So just oh, they know you from this, because I played with all the three ethnic groups, and I got on well with the Croatians, with the Greeks, Heidelberg, Macedonians, and the Italians, Juventus, and they were great. I never had any problems with either one of those committees or the players, and built a lifelong relationship with some of them, because I haven't seen any majority of them for about 25, 30 years. And just now, social media, I'm getting to get to know them,
Yep.
and it's like I've never left. It's that.
Well,
bond.
speaking of never leaving, the Pioneers, it's an opportunity for us to find out about the career, but also for you to remind others about some of the things that happened in your life and some of the decisions you made. But some of the players you played against, Pele, Franz Beckenbauer, George Best, Archie Gemmill, Bruce Rioch, Roy McFarlane, Charlie George, who was just a stunning player. For me, George Best, what was it like playing against Best? You liked watching and learning from the players.
Yeah.
Did you fear him, or did you say, come on, challenge me?
Well, it was. I only had 2 games against George Best, and he played
only?
he played one guest game for us. I can't recall what it was for. It might have been a charity game there at Derby and that. But you see, that's where I'm saying, when I was saying to you earlier on, when I played outfield a lot, that you don't think about it. The instinct just kicks in what you would do, because then what would I do if I was in his position? So I'm already reading him, and I'm putting him in an angle where I don't want to be if I'm the forward.
Yes.
So yeah.
But
so
he was a freak.
It wasn't I think that I had to think about. It's
No, it was just
instinctive.
instinct.
It was just instinctive. Yeah. But for me, he was unbelievable. Charlie George was great as well. He was a very arrogant, Charlie George, Cockney, but.
Tell us about Gary Lineker.
Well, Gary Lineker, that was the game at Leicester that
Yep.
we played. But I met him on a couple of occasions, and absolute gentleman. Really. He was just starting his career then.
Before he went to Spurs.
Before he
and
went to
then played
Spurs,
for England.
he was just a young boy there, and he scored against us as well. Last minute 2-1.
Trevor Francis?
Little shit.
Tell us about Trevor Francis.
Well, another great player. I mean,
And a gentleman.
Yeah, but most of these players, I think you'll find that most of these great players are very, in that era, they were gentlemen, and they were very humble. Don't know about the modern era. I'm a bit disappointed.
We won't worry about the modern era.
We're going to ask you about Neymar.
Yeah. You had a really good relationship with Justin Fashanu.
Yes.
Tell us about Fash.
Well, Fash came to Australia to because I knew him from England before
I
he
think
came to
guested
Australia.
with Adelaide City at one
That's
stage.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he came to Whyalla and stayed with the family, with my family
Okay.
for a couple of days. So
Yeah.
I got to know him really well. And Nottingham and Derby, you're talking about 20-minute drive, 25-minute drive, and you'd go out and. That's another thing, because we used to go out to Nottingham to have a drink. I was a teetotaler then, I never drank, because Colin Addison pulls me up one day and he goes, listen, this is a stressful situation. You're not going out and having a drink with the boys. I said, well, I don't drink. He says, I didn't ask you whether you drank or not. Get out with the boys.
Get out with the boys. Yeah.
All right, relaxing. So what happens, I got the contract late, so I never read the fine print on there. But there, you're not allowed to be seen 48 hours before the game.
Drinking.
Anyway, it doesn't matter, party, anything. Not allowed to be out in the pubs. And so all the boys knew that, of course, mate. So we used to hop over to Nottingham. So, well, of course you can't. It's only there. They're all know. And the next morning pulls me up and he says, sit down. All right. He goes, 2 weeks' wages you've been fined. You were told in no certain manner that you were to be seen 48 hours and you should have read your contract. And I said, well, I was late coming into, so fair enough. I said, you're the one that told me
To get out there.
to get out with. He goes, not 48 hours behind the night. He let me off with 1 week. He still docked me for 1 week.
We're listening to the stories from Yakka Banovic, great goalkeeper in the 70s and 80s. Played both in Australia and played, of course, overseas in Canada and, of course, in England. We're all hearing about one of the great Portuguese stars these days, who's made the move from La Liga to Serie A. His name is Ronaldo. But you ran into another Portuguese guy who could play. His name was Eusebio. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, he was he was in the Premiership side with Metros Toronto that won it that year. So when I was coming there, he was just sort of finishing off and taping off. But I do remember a funny incident, because we had pre-season training in the snow in Toronto, and then down Florida in the sand and that. And he'd turn up for the sand, not a problem there. But when it was the snow, he'd have his gloves, his beanie, he was wrapped, and he wasn't going out. No way.
Smart man.
Yeah. So. Yeah,
but you could see the
another-
style. You could see the polish.
Another very very classy player, and that was so many good players then, George. Every team had 10 household names who just didn't move from the club year to year. They stayed there for 5 years minimum, and that's lost now in this game. And you just mentioned quickly Neymar. Now, that absolutely fantastic player, but he's ruined it by
The character.
the character of that. And as soon as, and he spoils it for the rest of us soccer people, because non-soccer people, that's all they remember. Oh, you're diving, this and this. They all see that. They mock us. And so that's bad for.
There was very little diving in your day.
No, if you got hit, don't worry about that. You got hit. There was no pretenses.
And you got up again.
You were out in the stands.
I just want to quickly go back to the Derby days just before. Like, you broke in, you worked your way through, and you got into the first team, and you had a little bit of a stint there.
Yeah.
Just as a young guy, you migrated from Croatia. You've gone to Whyalla, country town, fair to say.
Yeah.
Again, as you said, you took your steps through, you built your way up, and now you're in a professional environment in England, second division, outstanding. Tell us your feelings, or what that meant to you and your family, and especially your dad, say, for instance.
Oh, my mother's the one that was the strong, really. That, of course, Dad was as well, but he was more laid back. But Mum was the
driven one.
The driven one, and I always and we sort of had a telepathy. She would know if I was injured, so she'd say to the old man, "Ring him, ring him." He goes, "Well, what do you mean? It's too. I don't care. Ring him. Something's wrong." "Oh, what do you mean?" So she knew. She knew if I was injured or whatever.
His managers just docked him. Ring him.
Mum knew. Mum knew.
But getting back to what it was like, it was. I mean, the first. It was sort of. I was a bit disappointed that I didn't come there for the beginning of the season, so that took a whole year to get into it. I lost a lot, and by losing a lot, I mean through frustration, not playing, and that took a lot out of me, mentally, physically. So when I finally got there, it's like, I should have been here long ago, that type of mentality. But when I did, I played well. In half the season that I played there, this is, to me, worth more than the save of the season or the trophies or anything else. I came runner-up to Steve Buckley by 2 points for the Player of the Year in half a season playing. So that means the fans appreciated that.
And you felt professionals.
Yeah, well, so that part of it was...
and you felt at home there? Did you feel at home there when you were playing? Did you
I
feel
loved
like
it,
that was what you were made for?
I got on well with everybody, surprisingly. They couldn't believe how well I got on, because I said I've had good practice here at Essendon with the English and the Scottish and all that. So I was well rehearsed in that. But no, I got it. Even I think Sean Lane was at Derby there. I don't know for how long, but I do remember, and he came. I don't know who he played for here.
He was at Preston here, and Juventus he played for here. He had a really good career, and he was a music man as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
But I do remember him at Derby he'd probably be able to tell you a little bit more on that.
Yakka, we've heard from people like Craig Johnston just how hard it was for an Australian to make it in Britain, because they always thought kangaroos, they don't play cricket.
Yeah.
They just don't play football. They play some AFL or something like that. Did you find any resistance when you arrived, or did they see you as a Yugoslav or a Croatian?
No, I found the resistance not from the players, but from the management. It was like Colin Hassan took so long. I remember before I got my debut, I was just asking. I said, look, I'm going. I've had enough. I don't care. I'm not breaking in the team. And John Newman was the assistant manager. He goes, Yakka, just
be patient.
Another couple of weeks, we're looking at. I said, well, how much? And then we lost midweek at home to Watford 6-1. And I said, that's it. I'm out of here. And John just pulled me to the side and he goes, couple more days. I think he knew what was going on. Well, anyway, that was a Wednesday game. Thursday, Colin Addison got the sack.
Yeah.
John Newman took over, and
you were in.
put me straight away. And we played at home against Sheffield Wednesday, and won 3-1. And then a couple of games later, we were at Barnsley there. We won one game there, and I saved 2 penalties, previous games, and then Leicester. They had a penalty there, and I'm going, what's going on here? Is there a game without a penalty?
You can save penalties.
So, it was that's the frustration. But with the players, like I said, I had no problems. It's frustrating for me to take so long to get there. And you know what? At the end of the day, when I look at it, when I first got there, the first year you had McFarlane, Gemmell, Charlie George, Rioch, all of these, but they were at the end of their careers, right? They were finishing. So by the time I got in, they were all already gone. McFarlane was assistant coach, Archie Gemmell was playing. By the way, I reckon as far as professionalism as a player, he's the best that I have played with.
Archie Gemmell, yes. Best professionally.
Best, by far.
Always well prepared.
Skillful, and it was always there for a helping hand, and I got on well with him.
Nice.
And I mean, Charlie George was
the opposite.
Exceptional as well. He was probably skillful. But exactly
right.
He didn't give a shit.
He's only interested in himself. I know that one of the reasons that you were happy to come onto the show was that you wanted to thank a couple of people and just make a couple of thank yous and get that out. Do you want to?
Well, I mean, you've been pestering me for a year to come on there, and I was saying, well,
asking you nicely,
why?
you call it. But it is pestering.
But it's like I said, when I finally got into Derby, and the 2 years, then this is what I was going to make a point. This is what sunk in, and you're playing with these players. You know how many times I said, I wish I had, Gary Cole, Jamie Pun up front in this team, John Eisner back, Kokoschka, Peter Lewis to the right, because we were going through players like you wouldn't believe. Defensively, they was not stable, and they weren't quality players. The quality players all finished. That they were early 70s that Derby had.
The golden era for Derby was
Unbelievable.
finished.
Absolutely, it was finished, and they never recovered even to this day. But then I'm saying, look, you know what? A lot of these players here that I played in Australia with were just as good, if not
Would have
better.
made the grade.
Yeah, would have made the. I'm telling you, the Heidelberg side, the Essen Croatia side, with 6 months of full-time training, we would have held our own in
I've only
second
got one
division.
question. Would Gary Cole have scored any goals in
Not with
England with a header?
Not without me. Not without my drop kicks and assisting him. I've got to get him.
He's a good man, Gary Cole, and I reckon he'd score at
loves
any
to
team.
go.
Don't worry about that.
Gentlemen.
No, like at Heidelberg, you just got to go. Theo Salamides, I mean, great friend, has been, since day one. Andy Vazekas, Buljevic, Tanzi, Jimmy Rooney.
Tanzi's got 2
Campbell.
new knees and 2 new hips.
Yeah.
You wouldn't recognise him.
Campbell, Kenny,
King
it's just unbelievable. Oh, and you know what? And the reserves then were Jeff Oliver and Charlie Yankos. And look, and have a look how they. So that was
Only
a talented team.
150 Socceroo caps
Yeah,
between
only.
the two of them.
And then you look at Melbourne Croatia as well. You had Billy Whitehead, Kančević,
Golden eras for both sides.
Branko Chulina, Robert Markowitz, Ned Tocic, Kokoschka, Gardner.
Murphy.
I mean,
Do you know who my next door
Murphy.
neighbour is? Eddie
yeah.
Krenčević.
Yeah.
So there you go. I'm surrounded by Croatians everywhere.
He's very fond memories, Gary, because with Eddie I stayed with his family for a while at Pascoe Vale there, and we used to go
So
training.
Miro and you,
Yeah,
nice and close,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Oh, very
lovely
good.
family.
Well, I'll
Lovely.
pass
His
on
mum,
best
his
wishes.
mother, yeah, his mother loved Eddie's mother as well. I mean, I was here recently for the funeral of my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law passed away as well. And that's
Sympathies.
where thank you, and that's where I met Eddie again. Through the family,
Yeah, yeah.
all the Croatian community. But yeah, he's very fond memories. We used to have good times. But these are the players that that made me what I was as well, and hopefully vice versa. That
Yeah,
they
great
became,
fit.
And like I said, I don't have any grudges or any bearings or hard anyway. But I do. I feel Blas must think he must have a voodoo doll somewhere with me.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Because when they
he has 2 special pins. Pin
when
stick.
when they got me back from England to Croatia here for the second stint, I didn't know what the situation was. But because I had in my contract that I can always come back to Croatia without any fees involved, that was part of the contract. So they got me because they were going to get that and then hopefully sell it. So when I saw the situation there, Tony Brugina was the coach, but I don't think he had the power to do what he wanted. The committee was running it, so he was disturbing a good team that was doing well, and Blas was playing well in goals. And I'm going, well, what the hell am I doing here then? You've got a great team here. What are you doing? So it started causing a rift for a couple of weeks where I said, no, I'm off. That's it. I've got to go, and that's when Juventus took over, and
Yeah, well, it'll be difficult. The two great goalkeepers and the club, or the squad, obviously they're
And respecting one another. wasn't
Yeah,
it?
obviously,
Of course.
absolutely.
Of course.
But one's got to play and one
yeah,
doesn't.
that's what I'm saying. And if Blas wasn't upset or angry in that, I would.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah,
He'd be
exactly
upset too
right,
because as
I
a
would be.
professional,
Exactly
yes,
right.
exactly.
He was playing well. I mean, he wasn't a shit kicker or whatever.
He certainly was.
So-
Well, we've
Not.
been delighted and thrilled to bits to get you finally in the studio. George Katsanis, 10 points for your efforts tonight.
You're welcome.
You've behaved, you've handled the gentleman in that hot seat very, very well.
He's deserved
Once
it.
again, you've been listening to the great Yakka Banovic, one of the great goalkeepers of our 70s and 80s, who not only represented Australia with pride, but did it with great skill at every marketplace that he managed to get himself involved in. And more importantly, will never ever be called a Yugoslav Always a Croatian.
Number 23.
Proud one.
Number
All the number
23.
23. Thank you for joining us, Yakka. And it's almost time for us to. I'll leave you one last second because we've got to fly.
Just the other team that I didn't mention was Brunswick Juventus, obviously. And I'm missing that's another guy. You had Zini there, Paul Wade, and remember Durakovic, Palacides.
You were blessed then, weren't you?
Exactly. I played with blessed teams in Australia here. It was great. So
Speaking
I
of blessed,
appreciate that, and thank you for
the opportunity. No problem at all. Time for us to go. Adriano Del Monte and Rick D'Andrea ready for us at Ultra Football in Sydney.
Well done, buddy. I told you we'd run out of time.
Thanks. Yeah.
FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Whyalla, no call! Score!
Salamidi for Cole. Cole on the run. Shoots. 2-0.
Lazanovsky with the free kick. Launches a rocket! Trimboli, what vision! Blasts. Yes! That's it!
Vujovic.
Here's Bozanic. They haven't! They might have won it!
The Pioneers with George Donikian and George Kotzanis on FNR, Football Nation Radio.